Democrats now who are saying he's a threat to democracy, and he's had 2 assassination attempts. Both sides need to tone down the rhetoric because there are enough unstable people out there that will take that as license to advance an agenda that I think is dangerous.
Dr. Phil sat down with Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur on the Young Turks, and things got very heated between Anna Kasparian, Cenk Uygur, and Dr. Phil. More particularly between Cenk Uygur and Dr. Phil here, where Dr. Phil absolutely demolishes Cenk Uygur and a lot of his talking points, a lot of his woke talking points. I don't know. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this. It seems like Dr. Phil had a huge change of heart recently. A while ago, maybe 6 or so months ago, he went on a tour where he talked to people like Bill Maher. He talked to people, he went on The View and torched them. And it just seemed like kind of out of the blue for me a little bit on how anti-woke Dr. Phil was. I don't think he was ever like ultra woke or anything like that, but it shocked me how anti-woke he was. Let me know in the comments why you think that is. Do you think he's genuinely always been like that? Or do you think he's being like an opportunist because he sees the way the pendulum is swinging? Let me know in the comments how you feel about that. But let's get into this clip here of Dr. Phil going off on Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur for some of the rhetoric that they use on their show, The Young Turks.
Am I supposed to react to that? Am I supposed to say, well, I love you as a human being. Yeah, go ahead and ban me. Right? Like I can't say that. They're forcing me into a fight. Do you see what I'm saying? So what does somebody do in a situation like that where it gets real hard?
You know, I think obviously that is an extreme, unrealistic and sustainable position. And I think when politicians take extreme positions, they have to be called on it, right? They have to be called on it. And I think saying it is one thing, doing it is another. And the problem I have with either side using this heated rhetoric is there are people that are followers that will take that lead and behave accordingly. Like, for example, in 21 years, I have never said, if you've got a child and they're running into traffic, I've never even said you should suppress the behavior by just swatting them and saying, no, don't do that. Which I would never even say that. And half the country is spare the rod, spoil the child, and half of the country is you don't spank your children. And I can't say you wouldn't even spank their hand if they were getting ready to touch a hot stove. And I'll tell you why. Because there are enough mouth breathers out there in the country that would take what I said and say, well, Dr. Phil says it's okay to hit your kids. And they would abuse their children, taking what I said out of context, amplifying it, and using it as justification to abuse their children. Now you take someone like...
This is a serious problem that the woke left has. This is a very serious problem that Dr. Phil is bringing up here to Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur, and I can tell they don't like hearing it, because whenever you actually have to hear someone like Dr. Phil out, whenever he's talking about this dangerous rhetoric that every woke person uses, but in particular here he's talking about stuff that's said on the Young Turks between Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur and the rest of their hosts. Whenever you have to take responsibility for that and say, yeah, you're right, we do use extreme rhetoric sometimes, that there are a lot of stupid people out there that will take this to the extreme, and we're seeing that right now with the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And people like The View, people like Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks and people like that will never take responsibility for it. I think Anna Kasparian actually would. I do. I think she's coming around a lot, and she's displayed a lot of common sense recently. So I think she would say, as a matter of fact, I think we do need to take some responsibility for these assassination attempts, but most people on the woke left would not, including Cenk Uygur. He would not. So Dr. Phil is saying everybody has a part to play in how extreme the political landscape has gotten, especially the woke left. And whenever you think about what is happening and the assassination attempt is happening on Donald Trump, if you agree to that, you have to agree that Cenk Uygur, and I'm not saying that they're solely responsible, but they play a part in the assassination attempts. And I think that's 100% facts. Let me know in the comments if you agree or not.
Like a leader who says something like you're talking about, you get these mouth breathers out there who all of a sudden they take that as license to aggress against Muslims. Or you take Democrats now who are saying he's a threat to democracy and he's had 2 assassination attempts. Both sides need to tone down the rhetoric because there are enough unstable people out there that will take that as license to advance an agenda that I think is dangerous. I think both sides keep amplifying the rhetoric and need to stop doing that.
So how do you suggest, so I totally hear what you're saying. How do you suggest people like us do our jobs, right? So like when we talk about what happened in 2020 and 2021, when we talk about the fake election.
It's pretty simple to me, and maybe it's not to anybody else, but what Anna Kasparian is asking here, and I don't pre-watch these, by the way, so if I say something and then Dr. Phil repeats it right after, I don't know that that's going to happen. I'm not doing that on purpose. So it's pretty simple, really. Just stop being so hyperbolic and so it's, I understand that they never directly say, hey, let's go and, commit, like do an assassination on Donald Trump. I got to watch what I say here. But I know that they never say that. But whenever you repeatedly say, this guy is evil, he's racist, he's sexually assaulted people, he's a threat to democracy. If he gets elected, the country is going to never be the same. He's going to overthrow the government. When you repeatedly say those blatant lies, what the hell do you think is going to happen? We have lunatics all over the place in this country. We see it with, school shootings and stuff like that. There's crazy people out there and they're all over the place. They're probably a lot more common than we like to believe. So whenever you say all of those lies, those blatant lies that are said on the Young Turks between Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur, on The View with Whoopi Goldberg and those idiots, on Bill Maher and so many other channels, of course, that's going to eventually happen. So the question that Anna is asking here to Dr. Phil is a pretty simple answer, really. Just stop lying. Stop being hyperbolic on everything when it comes to especially Donald Trump and people like him, and stop lying. It's so simple.
Scheme, January 6th. I mean, that was an attempt to assault our democracy. And I think it's important to report the truth without unnecessary language to rile people up. But right now, I think one of the problems I'm having is that people are trying to argue that simply discussing the reality of what happened following the 2020 election is literally putting Donald Trump's life at risk.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
And I don't believe that to be true.
Well, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either, but there is heated rhetoric that I think could contribute to these unhooked people out there.
Like calling Trump Hitler over and over again, stuff like that.
Yeah. Then you get somebody that takes that and acts on it. That's not the responsibility of the Democratic Party. That's the responsibility of the person that picked up the rifle and got on the roof and took the shots. That's not the responsibility.
I disagree. I don't know about you guys in the comments, but I disagree. I think I don't think it's the sole responsibility of people like the Young Turks and the leftist media. Obviously, like the guy has to go get the gun and get on the roof and everything like that, of course. But I do think they have a part to play, and I think they need to take responsibility for it. You can call out all these things without calling. I know that they're not calling for violence explicitly, but there's like veiled calls for violence. Like somebody has to do something about this guy. Like they'll say things like that, and it's like, what the hell do you think people will take that as? I don't get it.
But we, as broadcasters and political leaders, need to recognize, hey, people, that's why I say don't spank your children. I recognize there are those out there that will overreact to that. We have to be responsible. If I'm reporting a show about suicide, I never show how they did it. I never show the memorial services because there are responsible ways to report those things so you don't have a contagion effect with some teen who says, oh, I wish they'd have that kind of thing for me. And so there is a demonstrated contagion effect. So I refuse to show that. I won't show how it happened, because would I be responsible for somebody killing themselves? No, but I am aware of the contagion effect, and so I have to be a responsible broadcaster.
Yeah, so another thing we ground, a good transition to media, and so because with the shooters, after the first day, we never say their names anymore because they're partly doing it for the attention, right?
I never say their names.
Yeah, you'll never say their names unless they're a straight white male Republican voter, and then you'll say their name over and over again. That's the sad reality of the thing, man.
And, even the most famous ones, I say the shooter in Charleston, right? I say the church shooter, the El Paso shooter, et cetera. I never say their names because that's half the reason they're doing it, in my opinion. So there's a way to be responsible. So now you've got Merit Street Media, and I want to talk about that in a sec. But in your TV career, I'm curious, and Dr. Phil's show, legendary, et cetera. You had so many experiences. So is there one thing that you learned from all those experiences that's stuck with you more than the others? Of course, you always learn 100 lessons, right? But having done all those episodes, you think I learned this from that I didn't expect.
Yeah, the things that have stuck with me the most is the things I regret are the things usually that I didn't say. I'll watch something back and I'll get distracted. Somebody will use a term that's derogatory towards somebody, and it's usually some young person or something, and they'll refer to somebody that's got mental challenges or some way, and they'll use the R word referring to them or something. And I'm thinking, I'm going to call them on that, and about that time, the mom or something will say something, and I have to respond to that. And then the next thing, we got to go to break, and I realized I never went back and called them on that. And I'm going, oh my God. And then it aired.
All right, he's losing me. I'm not going to lie. I will just cut it here because I don't see a problem with using that word personally. Let me know in the comments what you think about Dr. Phil going on the Young Turks and schooling Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur on the rhetoric that they use and how dangerous it is, especially when it comes to multiple assassination attempts on a former and possibly future president. And they still don't take responsibility. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole Dr. Phil on the Young Turks versus Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur situation.